So great. First, let me thank everyone for being here. My name is Ed Potosnik, and I'm here today on behalf of the League of Conservation Voters Action Fund because we have a really important election coming up on Tuesday, November 8th of 2016. And we're enthusiastically supporting Josh Gottheimer for Congress. The League of Conservation Voters Action Fund works to elect candidates who will implement sound environmental policies. And I'm proud to be here today supporting Josh Gottheimer. He's made it clear that one of his top priorities is protecting our natural resources, clean air and safe drinking water for the communities of the 5th Congressional District and the state of New Jersey, and importantly, our country. As we've seen across the nation, water has been an increasingly more prominent issue as we've learned about some of, or been exposed to, or been taking note of some of the pollutants that have found their way in the drinking water supply in places like Flint and Newark and other communities. And right here in this neighborhood too, we do have threats. And almost every week we're seeing new data, increasing threats of climate change as well, and how polluted air is finding its way into the waterways and causing growing public health concerns. Thankfully, I can say with confidence that the news only strengthens Josh's resolve and his commitment to finding common sense solutions to protecting our open spaces, our air and our waterways, and the public health, most importantly, of our young people, our children. His commitment to conservation issues is invaluable, and we know that the cost of inaction is so high for our families here in the state of New Jersey. For example, Hurricane Sandy alone cost the state $65 billion in damage. And more costly storms like Sandy, Irene, Hurricane Lee are going to become more common as sea levels continue to rise, as the climate continues to change, and we see all kinds of frequent and very, very intense storms. But even more costly than those threats are the threats to our young people, their health and the future that they have. And we're happy to have some young people here with us today. Contaminated waterways pose a public health concern. Children, they can suffer from developmental problems. And no one can put a price on the health of our children. Unfortunately, Representative Scott Garrett has proved time and again that with his voting record that he values the profits of his corporate donors, like the oil and gas industry, over the long-term health and security of our families and our children. Representative Garrett is one of the most extreme anti-environment records in the New Jersey congressional delegation. He's earned an abysmal 9% lifetime score on the League of Conservation Voters environmental scorecard, the lowest in our state's delegation until this year. And if you look at the LCV scorecard, Scott Garrett's taken over 250 anti-environmental votes during his time in Congress. His votes have attempted to undermine and block protections for clean water and clean air, increase offshore drilling, double down on America's addiction to fossil fuels by weakening regulations on carbon and other pollution driving climate change, de-emphasizing investments in clean renewable energies of the future, and toxic runoff that finds its way into our waterways and drinking water. Having taken $223,000 from the oil and gas industry throughout his career, it's no surprise that nearly every opportunity that Representative Garrett has had, he's voted against protecting our air, our water, wildlife, our coasts, as well as constantly voting to not take action on climate change. Our families and communities deserve to be represented by someone who will stand up for them, for their health, and for the health of our families and our children. Unlike our opponent, Josh Gottheimer is committed to protecting our precious natural resources for our families, combating climate change, investing in our nation's clean energy future, protecting our water supply, and ensuring that we have clean water to drink and that our families can be healthy. In Congress, I can assure you that he will be a strong voice for the people of New Jersey and for our environment. He's prioritized with this press conference today and all of his work strengthening protections for our waterways, making sure our children are always safe and have clean, fresh water to drink. He's also dedicated on the climate side to renewable energy, enhancing New Jersey's economy, our natural landscapes, keeping our state healthy and prosperous. New Jersey is a great state. It is the Garden State, and I can assure you that Josh will keep the garden in the Garden State and keep it clean for our families to continue to enjoy. And that's really the biggest challenge that we face. Representative Garrett has been against public health, protecting the environment, investing in new energies that get us off of fossil fuel addiction. And we need to make sure this November we replace him with Josh Gottheimer to ensure our families are safe. And with that, I want to introduce a very important part of Josh's campaign, Miss Marla Gottheimer, who is not only the mother of 2 children who are the future of our nation, but is someone who is, I can tell you from my many experiences in working in campaigns with candidates, the most important and key component of a campaign is the supportive spouse. And it's just great to have her here today on this important issue of water protection.
Thank you. I'm going to try my best to project. Tell me if I'm not. Thank you, Ed. My name is Marla Tusk. As Ed said, I'm Josh's wife, and more importantly, mom to our 2 kids, Ellie and Ben. And I'm really happy to be here today to have a few minutes to speak with you about an issue that, as a parent, is really important to me, and I know, for any of you who are parents, is also important to you. As Ed has mentioned, we've all seen the stories in the newspapers about the water crisis in Flint and the horrifying pictures of the brown water there and the lead in the public schools in Newark. And now more recently, all of those horror stories about the water are hitting even closer to home for us here in the 5th District. Water samples that have been taken by the EPA from drinking water systems across New Jersey have revealed a really an alarmingly high presence of toxic chemicals in our water. And I'm not going to even try to pronounce the name of the chemical because it's way too complicated, but for short it's called PFOA. And there are a lot of towns here in Bergen County that are on the list of towns that have been affected by this, including Wyckoff, which is where Josh and I live with our kids, right here in Midland Park where we are right now, and all over our district. PFOA, surprisingly, even though it's been around for a long time, it's not regulated by the government, state or federal. So the problem there is that there's nothing that tells the water companies, the water providers, how much is too much in our water. And the bigger problem is that research has connected this chemical to a lot of really horrible health concerns and diseases, and I'll just read a few, not to be too much of a downer, but it's linked to kidney cancer, testicular cancer, thyroid disease, ulcerative colitis, pregnancy-induced hypertension, and even worse for newborns, it's linked to low birth weight and decreased immune responses for newborn babies. And what's worse is you can't even get rid of it. A lot of times if you boil water, you can get some of the bad stuff out. PFOA can't be boiled out of the water. So what that means is there's really effectively no safe way for us to use the water that's coming out of our taps, which is a problem, obviously, for us at home and also in the schools. I send my kids to school every day with water bottles, and when they run out of water, they refill it from their water fountain at school. And unless that water fountain is filtered, I can give them bottled water at home, but the minute they go to school, they're being exposed to these horrible chemicals. And anyone who's a parent knows there's so much that we have to worry about these days in raising our kids. But whether or not the glass of water you give them at bedtime is going to make them sick shouldn't be one of those things that we need to worry about. So we really need to be proactive, and we need to fix this problem now, before kids start getting sick, before kids start going to the hospital, and before we have a real emergency on our hands. As Ed mentioned, unfortunately for us here in this district, one of the biggest roadblocks to fixing the problem is the person who is supposed to be protecting us and fighting for us, and that's our current representative, Scott Garrett. As Ed mentioned, Scott Garrett votes against pretty much any regulation or any safeguards for clean water, including the Clean Water Act. And he's really just more focused on adhering to his Tea Party principles of keeping the federal government out of everything. And unfortunately, he's sacrificing the health of our families and our kids in the process. So what our family needs, what my family needs, and what all of the families in this district need is someone to represent us who will bring funding back to the district so that we have fundamental necessities like clean water. I know how important this is to Josh. I know how much he cares obviously about our kids, but about the future of all of the kids and the families in this district, and I know that he will make it a priority when he's in office to get us the funding that we need to test our water, to replace pipes where they need to be replaced, to put in filtration systems where they can be helpful, to keep the chemicals out of the water, and to keep our families safe. So I could go on about what Josh believes, and trust me, I speak for him all the time, whether he likes it or not, but I'm going to turn it over to him now to let him tell you in more detail about his plans and what he would do on this issue. Thank you very much for having me here today. It was really nice to get a chance to speak to you.
Preet, you made it. I don't know where she went. But thank you. Sorry. Come on up if you want. Morning. Thanks for coming out on a beautiful day. I really appreciate it. Everyone here, I hope. Thank you, Marla. You guys all see who's really in charge every day in our household, and I can't thank Marla enough for being the best mom there is to our two kids, Ellie and Ben. And I'm very, very lucky for her and having Preet here and Lauren. Ed, thank you so much. And Reverend Jackson, the fact that you're here means a lot. Everyone, I'm sure, knows Reverend Jackson from Mount Olive and Hackensack. The Reverend is incredibly, we met this week, he's incredibly committed to this issue, not just in Hackensack, but across the state and our country, in Newark, and what's going on in Jersey City, and making sure the water is safe. I know you're going out to Flint next week, on the 18th, to help on the ground there, and I think there's nothing that's more important for keeping our children safe and making sure there's clean water. And Ed, I'm honored to receive the endorsement of New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. LCV does such important work, as you all know, across the country to protect our water, our air, and all of our natural resources. And I'm very proud to partner with them and to have you here and to represent so many families in our district about the issues, the environment they care about. And really, at the end of the day, as my wife said, and everyone has said, and about Preet and Lauren, I know care about, all parents are here and wake up every day with one thing on their mind these days. We all have children in this community, and we are all deeply concerned about their health and safety. The recent issues we've been reading about in our local papers, some catalyzed by the awful situation in Flint, have made one thing crystal clear. When it comes to the safety and security of the water our children drink and bathe in, the facts are shockingly murky. I speak to parents every day who, like me, want to know what's being done to protect their families and the health of their children. So we're here today because we simply can't afford to sit back and hope for the best, not when our children's health is at stake. When it comes to lead, PFOAs, and other toxic chemicals, we need to figure out what's going on in the school water fountains and in our water wells, supplying our homes and our businesses, and we need to do so right now. Delay on this issue is not an option we can afford. So first, I'm calling for lead testing immediately in every public school, grammar school, middle school, and high school. Here in the 5th District, that would only cost us about $200,000, about $1,200 a school. And I call on the EPA to use its emergency funds to help cover these costs through their Emergency Community Water Assistance Grants. These are taxpayer dollars that we're already paying to the federal government that are in place, and I think it's time that people like Scott Garrett and others call back to have them brought here to take care of this incredibly important issue. Why do we need to know what the water levels are in our schools? Because we know that lead in our drinking water at elevated levels can cause decreased IQ, learning disabilities, brain damage, seizures, poor muscle coordination, speech, and language problems, just to name a few of the frightening effects. And here's the problem. Lead levels in drinking water are tested at the water plant level. Here in New Jersey and in our public schools are actually not required to test the lead levels coming out of their pipes, their faucets, and the water fountains. So it happens at the treatment centers, but not actually they're not tested in the schools. There's no New Jersey law or federal law for that matter requiring any school level testing of our water. So as we saw in Flint, and now possibly here at schools in New Jersey, the lead level standards may be okay when the water leaves the water treatment facility, but it might actually pick up lead by the time the water passes through the school pipes and water fountains and fills up our children's water bottles. The question is can we test these things? It's not whether it's happening, right? Because we know it's happening in other places around the country. But I want to know what's happening here in New Jersey and in the 5th District. That's the information, the facts we deserve to know. Here in Bergen County, in Sussex, Warren, and Passaic, whether it's at Hackensack High School, which was built 100 years ago in 1916, or Newton High School, or Sycamore Grammar School, where my daughter goes, we just have no idea how much lead is in the water our children are drinking every single day. We just don't know if the lead levels exceed the 15 parts per billion acceptable level. And that's a gamble, frankly, that I'm not willing to take. As parents, our hearts sink when we read that anyone's son or daughter could be exposed to chemicals that could cause cancer or other serious life-altering illnesses simply because of the water they drink, bathe in, or play in. As my wife Marla said, it would be unacceptable if even one child got sick because a school wouldn't do regular testing or a town didn't have the means to replace their old pipes. So second, beyond the lead issue, I call on the EPA to immediately set safety standards for PFOAs and PFOSs, known carcinogens that are increasingly found in the water in many of our communities. PFOAs are the chemicals that many companies like DuPont started using years ago to coat various products like non-stick pans, running shoes, pizza boxes, waterproof jackets, and microwave popcorn bags. You know, when they did it, we didn't know the dangers, but now we do. And over time, the PFOAs, a particularly durable molecule, have peeled off these products, seeped into the groundwater, and then into the water wells, where most of our water comes from. And although all companies agreed to stop using PFOAs in 2015, or by 2015, the chemical has stuck around in our drinking water. Researchers at the Harvard School of Public Health suggested in a recent scientific journal that PFOA water standards should be as low as 0.001 parts per billion, which is 40 times lower than New Jersey's standard and 400 times lower than the current federal advisory standard. It's just an advisory standard, not a set standard. In short, while it's clear that PFOAs are no good for us and cause significant health issues, it's unclear exactly what a safe level should be. EPA needs to step in here and set a clearly defined standard, just as they have done for clean water and clean air levels. It's why, when you set levels that are acceptable, right, so that we can stay safe, it's why we can see past that water tower, right, and see down the street. Unlike so many cities we see on TV, like Beijing, where on some days you can't see down the city block. In 2013, the EPA detected elevated level of PFOAs in 14 drinking water systems, including at Fairlawn and Ridgewood Water, which applies drinking water to 60,000 people in Glen Rock, Midland Park, Ridgewood, and Wyckoff, right here in Midland Park. And when Fairlawn tested their PFOAs and PFOS levels, they found levels at 0.036, significantly higher than many acceptable safety standards, according to scientists. Fairlawn received its state DEP pilot grant to install carbon filters in 9 of the town's 16 wells. These carbon filters should help remove PFOSs from the water at the plant level. But in the end, we need those safety standards. We need to explain to communities like ours the best steps to get rid of PFOAs from the waters our families are drinking and showering in. And as Ed made clear, overall, when it comes to dangerous chemicals in our water, and I'm saying this as a parent, and I know all the parents here feel exactly the same way I do, we need smart testing and strong protections. We just can't afford to look the other way and leave it to hope and chance, as my opponent Scott Garrett has done for the 13 years he has spent in Washington, representing the Tea Party, not our children and families here in northern New Jersey. And frankly, when it comes to protecting our children and families from lead and other chemicals in our drinking water, Garrett's record is nothing but toxic. Simply put, Scott Garrett has the distinction of holding one of the worst environmental records in all of Congress. It's not just that he denies the existence of climate change, right? He does not believe in climate change and global warming. He said, quote, "I think the science is still out on that." But look at his record, vote after vote. I'm going to give you a quick sampling of his Tea Party record on these issues because it's remarkable. In January 2016, Garrett voted for a resolution to permanently block the EPA and the Army Corps' Clean Water Rule. In 2015, Garrett voted against legislation to help prevent contamination of groundwater that would have helped protect our water sources. That year, he also voted against requiring hazardous waste sites to follow groundwater monitoring standards, and he voted against protections for America's waterways that would actually help ensure safe drinking water. In 2011, a banner anti-environmental year for him, Garrett voted for a bill which would undermine the Clean Water Act by removing EPA's ability to actually enforce the Clean Water Act on the books. And then he voted to block standards to reduce emissions of pollutants from coal-fired plants that the Environmental Protection Agency set. In 2011, a couple years before, Garrett also voted to discontinue the EPA's ability to regulate pollutants in our drinking water. In 2007, he voted against a bill to prevent clean air laws from being rolled back to protect polluters. In 2005, you can see the consistency here, he voted against a measure to prevent the producers of gasoline additive MTBE, another known carcinogen, from being held accountable for contaminated drinking waters. I think you get my point. After 13 years in Washington, the environmental groups, people who protect and stand up to protect our water and the health of our children, the LCV, as mentioned, gave him a lifetime score so far of 9%. That's the highest he's gotten. He got a big 0% lifetime score from the Clean Water Action for his consistent record opposing safeguards for the water we drink. The Environment America gave him a 0. The Sierra Club, which we all know, gave him a 0 on his clean water record. 0 after 0. It's remarkable. So this time around, I hope that Scott Garrett will change his mind, stop fighting for the National Tea Party, and start standing up for us here in our community. A 0 for protecting children just isn't acceptable. It's time to bring back some of those taxpayer dollars that we spend so much on, which should be lowered. But in the meantime, let's bring them back to the district to help fund clean water here in northern New Jersey. Let's see what's going on with PFOAs and set the standards, and let's find out what the lead situation is in the pipes in our schools. I hope Scott will join me in calling for immediate testing for lead levels in our school drinking water. For less than the cost of one of those Garrett taxpayer-funded pieces of mail he sends to our homes, we can test all of the schools in our district. So I hope Scott will call on me and join the EPA to set clear safety standards for PFOAs and PFOSs, chemicals that we know are causing cancer, kidney disease, pregnancy-induced hypertension, low birth weights, and thyroid disease. Together, we can grow our economy, grow the environment, and protect our children. To me, any other path is simply non-negotiable. Because when I'm in Congress, I'm going to be a problem solver who's willing to work across the aisle, to bring together to solve problems like these, and to get things done for us in New Jersey. I'm going to be on the front lines for you to protect the health and safety of our children. So thank you so much for being here today, and have a great day.
In the 5th Congressional District, not many towns in Passaic County fall under the 5th Congressional District. One of those towns is Ringwood. And I know it's a very lead-themed press conference, but the discovery of 1,4-dioxane in the groundwater supply in the Gulf up there, one of the major complaints, especially from the Roundabout Lenape Nation, is not enough state involvement, not enough congressional involvement. Do you have a message for anyone in Ringwood right now, being that you are running for Congress? What would you do to maybe address that situation?
I think we have to be incredibly aggressive there to make sure that everybody in that community, frankly, and all the towns around, go to bed feeling safe at night. And I am deeply concerned that make sure there's not one particle that could hurt someone, hurt a child, hurt a family. And so I think the state and the federal government has to make sure that they're doing everything humanly possible to make sure that everyone's safe. Thanks. Okay. Thank you guys very much.
I just want to clarify one thing.
Yeah.
So the endorsement today was the League of Conservation Voters Action Fund, and I'm the executive director of the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, but I'm here on behalf of the Action Fund, which is based in Washington, D.C.
I actually just want to call on the Reverend to say a couple words.
My name is Greg Jackson, pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church in Hackensack. I'm glad to be here to endorse Josh. And who could believe, I do a lot of traveling around the world on global missions in third world countries, in Africa, and India, and Australia, all around the world in third world countries. Who would imagine that we'd be talking about drinking water in the United States of America or in the 5th Congressional District? To be talking about it, our congressperson should be ashamed. Our governors and our leaders, the fact that we are in the most affluent nation in the world, that we're talking about drinking water. There's so many other issues that we ought to be thinking about, and hopefully we can get this one behind us so that we can deal with so many of the other issues that I'm sure Josh will be bringing to our attention in other press conferences. Thank you so very much and for this opportunity to share.
Thank you.